You ever get that, that feeling like back in the day, playground, and you see like the bully coming your way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you get that like pit in your stomach.
Hmm.
Turns out that feeling for a lot of us doesn't magically disappear when we get our grown-up jobs, you
Right.
know?
Right.
It actually kind of follows us straight into the office. So today we're doing a deep dive on something that's surprisingly common, even for adults,
Hmm.
workplace bullying.
Hmm.
And to help us unpack this whole thing, we're going to be focusing on, well, really just this one image, but it's a good one. It was shared by someone named Rob, and it really got me thinking. So picture this.
Yeah.
You've got this circle of kids, right? But instead of like t-shirts and jeans, they're all wearing suits. And instead of a lunchbox, there's a briefcase in the middle. It's this really clever way of showing that bullying doesn't end after school. It just gets a fancy new office to hang out in.
Right.
Now, the best part is Rob doesn't just leave us with this image. He actually breaks down this whole complex issue, workplace bullying, into 5 steps. So we're going to unpack those together today.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So his first point really hit home for me. He says that workplace bullies often use their job titles and their place in the company to basically, I don't know, get away with acting like jerks.
Yeah, it's like that corner office somehow comes with a special license to ignore common decency.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like they forgot all about treat others how you want to be treated.
Right, exactly.
That's wild.
Well, and it ties into this psychological concept called the power paradox.
Okay, tell me more.
So it basically suggests that getting more authority, more power can actually, like, ironically, make people worse at making good decisions. Less empathetic, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
wow. So it's like the more power you get, the less likely you are to think about how your actions affect other people.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like they lose sight of their better judgment. You could even say it kind of like backfires on them, you know?
Huh. Okay. So it's not just about weeding out the so-called bad apples then. It's like we need to understand why the orchard itself seems to keep producing those bad apples.
Right. It's like a cycle, you know?
Hmm.
Because a toxic environment rewards those unhealthy behaviors, which creates a system where that behavior, like bullying, becomes almost like expected.
It's like everyone's afraid to speak up because they think, well, that's just how it is here.
Exactly. And that's what we call the systemic impact. It's not just blaming any one person, it's understanding that the workplace itself, like the culture, plays a huge role.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Um,
So if we think about it like a ripple effect, that takes us perfectly to Rob's second point, which is all about the ripple effect of just one toxic person.
Mm.
He says one bully can impact everyone and everything, like morale, how productive people are, even the overall vibe of the whole company.
It's true. And there's
Uh,
actually research to back that up. Like there are studies in organizational psychology that show toxic workplaces just straight up have employees quitting more, being less productive.
Makes sense. Who wants to come to work when it feels like that every day?
Exactly. And, you know, get this, it can even stifle innovation.
Oh, interesting. Because people are probably too afraid to speak up with new ideas, right?
Exactly. They might be thinking, what's the point
Right, exactly.
if it's just going to be shot down or worse, stolen?
That's a really good point. Okay, so we've talked about how power can kind of corrupt behavior
Mhm.
and then how that behavior can impact a whole workplace. But what about recognizing it in the first place?
Hmm.
Because it's not always as obvious as like name calling or yelling in your face, right?
Right.
So Rob's third point is all about those subtle signs of bullying.
Yeah, those are important to watch out for.
He lists things like, let's see, constant criticism, taking credit for other people's work,
Yeah.
leaving people out of the loop, things like that. Have you ever run into any of these in your own work?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I actually once worked with a colleague, and they were constantly being undermined in meetings.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, their ideas were great, like genuinely brilliant, but there was always someone kind of subtly dismissing them, you know? Like their ideas weren't worth considering, or, and this one's even worse, someone else would take credit for their work entirely.
Oof, that's the worst.
And to top it off, they were always excluded from these important meetings where, like, their expertise was obviously needed.
That's awful. But I guess in a way, it's a good reminder that it's often these subtle things that can be the most damaging.
100%.
It's like that death by 1,000 paper cuts thing. So, okay, we can recognize these red flags, but how do we go from there to actually changing things? How do we create a positive and supportive environment? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally.
Because it's not enough to just like spot bad behavior.
Yeah.
We need to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
So Rob's last 2 points are all about solutions.
Okay, love it.
Points 4 and 5 are about creating a culture of accountability and empowering good leadership.
Love that.
But like, how do we even do that? What does that even look like?
Well, I think it starts with changing how we think about it. Instead of just focusing on punishing bad behavior after it's already happened, it's about actually creating a workplace where people are encouraged to, treat each other with respect in the first place.
But being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. Exactly. And that might look like having clear ways for people to communicate, really good systems for when someone does experience something bad, and making sure anyone in a leadership position is trained to be empathetic and value collaboration.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also about recognizing and celebrating those leaders who are already doing it right.
Right.
That can be really powerful.
Totally. Totally. We need to highlight the good just as much as, if not more than, we point out the bad.
Yes, exactly. It's about changing the overall environment, the culture, to make respect and collaboration the norm. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And thankfully, Rob gives us a really clear takeaway message at the end, which I absolutely loved. He says, and I quote, "A truly successful workplace thrives on mutual respect and empowerment, not intimidation."
That's it. That's the key takeaway.
Yeah, such a good point to end on.
So next time you're at work and you see something that feels off, ask yourself, is this situation helping people grow, or is it making them afraid?
Oh, that's such a good question to ask.
And more importantly, what's one small thing you can do to change it? To even just slightly tip the scales in the right direction.
I love that. Such a great point to end on. Big thanks to Rob for sharing that image and, of course, these really thought-provoking and, most importantly, actionable points.